Hello everyone, SoulsBorneFanatic here. I bet you didn't expect another video that soon. I bet you didn't expect another video at all. Today, we are diving very deep, not really, into the Duskbloods, Fromsoftwares' upcoming Switch 2 exclusive. As you know, I am very excited for this game and will be purchasing it day one. Forget the industry impacts or the implications for what could happen with other games that we shall not mention. Today, I want to talk about how just awesome the game looks, and it totally didn't steal any attention from any other game. Something I want to highlight right away is the Gothic steampunk world. So this is familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. Of course, everyone knows Bloodborne. We're now, like, maybe a bit more futuristic, a bit more sci-fi. Instead of having vampires, no, not vampires. Instead of having werewolves, you have vampires. I don't think there's any vampiric references in Bloodborne that I remember. I could be wrong. I could look like a fraud right now. This game is set in a gothic, steampunk-inspired world that feels like Bloodborne a little bit. You're in the twilight of humanity, a time where society is on the brink. Think Victorian-era streets with towering spires, foggy caverns, and even a train rolling through one of the maps. It sounds cool. That's because it is cool. I'm sorry, nobody got that. But anyways, on top of that, the setting isn't tied to just one era. You get a mix of Gothic castles, early modern technology like firearms, another steampunk technology with the robot thing that we saw. One character in the trailer was flying around with a jetpack. For a From Software game, this is very unusual. Still got that dark, oppressive atmosphere, or rather aesthetic. Steampunk elements fill you with a sense of wonder, that makes you curious of how that plays into how this world is created. I think this game will be the most unique in terms of locations, enemies, boss design. The new IP, you can get really creative because it's not attached to any pre-existing franchise. When we look at Shadow of the Erdtree, that was extremely varied in the locales, right? They had very different color palettes throughout the entire DLC. You saw that as well in the regular base game of Elden Ring, but they really highlighted it better, I think, in Shadow of the Erdtree. And I think the art direction for this new IP, the Duskbloods, I think it will be absolutely incredible. From what we've seen already, I think I'm really drawn to this game visually. From Software games always nail their art direction and settings and characters. But that's not all that there is to a FromSoft game, of course. You also have the stories that they tell, right? With the environmental storytelling. And you can pick up a lot here through this trailer, although you might not understand any of it. Each frame is telling you a unique story, and I think they might do some different and experimental things with how they tell their stories this time around. Reminiscent of that NPC boss fight near the end of Shadow of the Erdtree, where every NPC that you interacted with or didn't interact with all came together and fought at the end, which was something they've never done before until then. You play as the Bloodsworn, and these are the protagonists, a group of vampire-like warriors who've gained superhuman abilities through special blood. But, of course, they are not your typical vampires, right? Miyazaki said this in the interview, that they're romanticized, more tragic and mysterious than monstrous. Obviously, blood is going to take a big part in the role of this new game, right? But how that will look like, I guess Miyazaki gave us sort of an idea. It says here, can you let us know behind the meaning behind the title, The Duskbloods? He says, the Duskbloods directly refers to the Bloodsworns themselves. As mentioned earlier, the Bloodsworn are summoned to the twilight of humanity in the battle for first blood. Duskbloods is a collective term for the characters controlled by the player. I guess this is essentially like if you took the title Elden Ring and named it Tarnished. It sounds like blood plays a pretty big role in this game. Yes, in the context of this game, blood is used more conceptually as opposed to the literal meanings of physical depictions of injury. Blood symbolizes one of the game's key themes. The history it holds, the power it passes on, the fate it weaves, and the marker of those who have surpassed the limitations of their own humanity. It sounds here like they are echoing some similar themes to Bloodborne, which also has blood in the title. Part 2 of this interview that Miyazaki did continues on, focusing on the superhuman abilities and opportunistic behaviors. What are some of the characteristics of the Bloodsworn? There are several reasons we put the player's focus on the Bloodsworn, with one of those being the character's actions. The Bloodsworn possess superhuman abilities thanks to the special blood, so their actions are more dramatic than anything seen in our previous titles. Even basic character actions, games such as sprinting, jump, and double jump are designed to be dynamic and stress-free, and they're complemented by each character's own unique weapons and abilities, allowing for a wider range of creativity. Also, and while this isn't directly related to the Bloodsworn themselves, the setting allows for a depiction of firearms and such. Every character is equipped with some means of attacking from a distance. I feel like this is one of our game's unique aspects when compared to our previous titles. I hope these new action elements are one area that players will enjoy. So what Miyazaki said here was very interesting. So they have given us the ability to attack from range to not only limited characters, but every character. I don't know exactly how that's going to play into combat encounters, but sounds like it's going to be very dynamic. With the range of attack being extended to that degree, I think you're going to find yourself in more troublesome situations than you previously have. The days of cheesing through a doorway are over. No more shall you be able to circumvent boss mechanics or enemy mechanics through these cheap means. You will actually have to engage with the gameplay now. Maybe I'm reading into this wrong. I'm not exactly sure. It sounds like, from what I've read, that the player character will be allowed to attack from distance, but also said while this isn't directly related to the Bloodsworn themselves. So that would give me the idea that enemies can do. So another topic that people were very interested in, how is the character creation? Well, from the looks of it, it looks like there will be no character creator. That's right here. Earlier you referred to protagonists or characters as plural. Does this mean the player will be able to choose from multiple different characters? Yes, there are a dozen characters for the players to choose from, with each with their own identity and appearance. I think there are a lot of unique elements to the character designs and weapons they use, so hopefully players will find one or two favorites. Also, each character can be customized to a certain extent, allowing players the fun of building characters that feel like their own. So it looks to me like it's reminiscent of Elden Ring Night Rain. It looks like you're choosing from a list of characters. It doesn't really sound like a traditional Souls game in that vein. It sounds like this would be different as well, but maybe leaning more so away from the Battle Royale. Although I guess we're not exactly that familiar with the gameplay loop until the next part of the interview talks exactly about that. Can you provide some more detail on the general gameplay loop? The game has a so-called hub area, where players can choose their character, customize them, and enter online multiplayer. Online multiplayer supports up to 8 players. Upon concluding an online match, players then return to the hub, at which point they receive some sort of reward, whether they win or lose. Using these rewards, players can customize their character and cycle, so the cycle continues. Online matches are generally last player standing. However, there are several cases where victory conditions occur. For example, players may be tasked with teaming up to take down a powerful boss, or find themselves under a special circumstance. So victory conditions are influenced not just by PvP results, but PvE results as well. That's right, some victory conditions center around defeating a boss enemy. So it sounds like they will be catering to both crowds, the PvP crowd and the PvE, which they proceed to say in the next part of the interview. It sounds like even those who tend to shy away from PvP can still enjoy themselves. That was the intention. I personally am not much of a PvP person, and I wanted to make something that's satisfying even for players like me. While the goal of the match is to obtain first blood, here are personal objectives that provide separate rewards for the player as well. I hope these add to the fun of each engagement. For me personally, I'm not much of a PvP guy. I've dabbled in it. I enjoyed it in Elden Ring with that beautiful PvP that they finally crafted there. But I think that the PvP will be, maybe a bit better than they have done in the past, seeing how it seems to be a big focus for them in this go round. Up next is part 3, playing roles and altering fates, the final part of this very juicy, very meaty 3-part interview. What other ways might players enjoy the game outside of combat? One thing I love doing in any game I direct is leaving fragments of lore and world-building details, allowing the players the fun of using their imagination to make connections. The Duskbloods is no exception to this. However, we've gone about it in a little differently from previous titles. Fragments this time were found in the previously mentioned character customization items, their blood history and feats. Customizing a character will reveal a piece of information regarding the world unfolding story. To customize their blood history, fate? Yes. Analyzing and altering a character's blood history, fate allows players to customize all sorts of things, from the abilities, appearance, and inner characteristics to the role they play in a world, relationships with other characters. Focusing these elements, concept of blood history, fate, allowed for a deeper exploration of customization, another reason we placed the Bloodsworn protagonist. So it sounds like there's interactability with the lore of this game. I'm not exactly sure how this is different from previous games reading item descriptions. It seems to me like just playing the game as you would give you lore. I see how it could be different, but it sounds very similar to what we have previously seen. So this very last bit talks about how the role will be in this role-playing game. Do you mind sharing any other points you personally find interesting? One area I haven't talked about yet is roles. In online play, roles give players special responsibilities and objectives that often lead to unique interactions and relationships between players based on their corresponding roles. That's probably not much info to go on, so allow me to provide a few examples. But please, we're still finalizing some of the details. For example, if a player possesses the destined rival's role, another player is designated as their rival, and they are tasked with finding and defeating the player. Doing so counts as achieving a personal goal, separate from the overall victory conditions. Another example is Destined Companion, where one player is required to seek out another designated as their companion, which results in a special reward if they form a bond with one another. Roles can be assigned to any character via blood customization, allowing players to enjoy role-playing in a literal sense, and hopefully adding drama to these engagements. I'm a fan of this. This sounds very cool. I can't wait to engage with this, actually. This sounds like it's going to require a lot of working together with the community, and it's going to lead to some very funny moments, I think. But it should be very interesting. I don't know exactly how many roles there will be in this game, but it sounds very fitting for this role-playing game. Alright, last thing of the article. Not article. Interview. Well, I guess it is an article. It's the same thing. That reminds me, I was curious about the winged rat character seen in the trailer. Can you provide some details as to what role this character serves? That character shares a similar role with the Firekeepers from the Dark Souls series. They remain in the hub area, providing the player with advice and guidance. I suppose you could say we tried doing something a little Nintendo-esque in the spirit of the partnership. What do you mean by that? We tried something cute for a change. Although, I will say, this character is actually an elderly gentleman. I cannot say I am not surprised, because I am not surprised. Well, that concludes everything that I wanted to talk about, from the interview at least, but if you're interested, I will link the interview in the description below. You can read through the part that I did not look at, and yeah, that'll be it for the Duskbloods for now. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a nice rest of your day.